Bonjour, je m'appelle Jacques Mandeville. Welcome to yet another episode of Jacked History. Today's episode is a first. It's about a lady.
Hello!
Don't you click off. Don't you leave me, you sexist piece of shit. You're gonna regret it. Okay, you're still here? Are they still watching, Peter?
They're still watching.
Okay, good. Chances are you've seen the movie Braveheart, a loosely based true story on the life of William Wallace, the Scotsman whose wife was murdered by the English, which inspired him to go on a killing spree against England. Well, shortly after those events transpired, something similar was happening in France. To give a simplistic backdrop, the Brittany region of France shared some similarities with Scotland. They were a fiercely independent people who were ethnically and culturally removed from the French kingdom of the time, as were the Scottish from the English.
Doesn't it make you proud to be Scottish?
It's shite being Scottish!
And like England to Scotland, the French were consistently trying to get their grubby little hands on the region in an effort to consolidate their kingdom. Not only that, they suffered incursions from the English as well, as the English nobility was primarily of French Norman descent themselves. But what separated the people of Brittany from the French and English nobles was they were primarily of Celtic and Cornish origins. The reason I'm stating all this is just to reiterate how all the ethnic and cultural differences had all these people in a never-ending cycle of conflict. Jeanne de Clisson was a French noblewoman born near the Brittany border in the year 1300. Her family were successful merchants who had interactions all over Western Europe and Britain. In 1312, 8 years after the death of her father, she was betrothed to a 19-year-old nobleman named Geoffrey, where she pumped out her first two kids by 1314 and 1316. Born in 1300, married in 1312, having her first kid in 1314, you go ahead and do the math on that. Had she been born 800 years later, she would have been a perfect guest for Maury Povich.
And now back to more kids who are out of control on the Maury Povich Show.
That marriage lasted 14 years until the death of Geoffrey in 1326. What's a noblewoman to do? Get remarried, of course. That marriage only lasted for 2 years, as there was some family politicking that occurred that went all the way up to the Pope, who annulled the marriage. Enter marriage number 3, to Olivier IV de Clisson, or as we'd say in America, Oliver from Clisson. Ollie, who was a widower himself, was a wealthy Breton who held lands both in Brittany and on the French side of the borders. By combining her inheritances from her first husband with Olivier's, the couple became one of the most powerful lords in their region. Though it was a marriage that politically benefited both of them, it was by all accounts a loving relationship as well. The couple spent the next decade pumping out 4 children while raising others they brought in from their previous relationships. Jeanne de Clisson was living the dream. But everything would come crashing down in 1342 when the War of Breton Succession broke out. To save myself from derailing the whole point of this video, I'll break it down quickly. Also, there's a lot of old French and English names I don't really feel like pronouncing.
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
So there was a dispute over who was going to control the Duchy of Brittany. The French sided with one family. The English, who had ancestral ties to nobles in Brittany, sided with another. Then all the other nobles in France had to choose sides. Ollie's family was split themselves. Though his brothers sided with the English, Ollie sided with the French. As a nobleman, he was tasked with defending the Brittany city of Vannes, I don't know, it's French, from English sieges. Which he successfully did not once, not twice, but thrice. It was the English's 4th attempt at sieging the city that they were victorious, and Ollie was captured. As they did with nobles in those days, there was a prisoner exchange between the French and English.
I'll trade you.
And Ollie was freed for a relatively low sum of money. Because of his family's mixed allegiances, the leader of the French efforts in Brittany suspected that he had not put in his full efforts in fighting the English and accused Ollie of being a traitor. Okay, this is when this whole story gets real Games of Thronesy.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die.
In January of 1843, there was a truce signed by the French and English. A sporting tournament was held on French soil, which Ollie and some other Breton and Norman lords were invited. Psych! It was a trap!
It's a trap!
The second they set foot on French soil, they were captured. move to Paris and give it a trial for their alleged treason. Of course, Jeanne, Ollie's loving wife, freaked out. She hightailed it to Paris and tried to bribe some of the king's guards to set her husband free. That failed, so now she was on the lam after being charged with transgressions against the king. Ad read, ad read, ad read, ad read. On August 2nd of 1343, Ollie was publicly beheaded in Paris.
Off with his head!
Despite numerous efforts by Jeanne to have him spared. And he wasn't just executed and delivered back to his home castle for a respectful burial. Oh no. The king had his corpse displayed in Paris and his head put on a pike in Brittany to thwart others from double-crossing the king. 3 weeks later, Jeanne, still in hiding, was convicted of crimes against the king for her attempted bribing of the king's guards and, understandably, being vocal about her husband's previous detainment and beheading. You gotta understand one thing. While putting someone's head on a pike was a common thing in those days, it was usually reserved for low-level criminals and the peasant classes, not noblemen. Thus would begin Jeanne's villain origin story. While her husband's head sat in Brittany, she grabbed their 2 young sons and marched them into the city to look at their father's head on the pike. In that moment, staring at his rotting head, she swore vengeance against the king and all the French nobles involved with her husband's death.
Now you're all in big, big trouble.
It was on. Now that she inherited the de Clisson estates, she sold off every bit of land and everything on it, then used that money to raise an army of 400 men and got right to work. She walked up to the castle of Tofu. The commander of the castle, who was an officer under the man who double-crossed her husband, recognized Jeanne and let her in like she was an old friend. Then her and her forces proceeded to slaughter every single soldier in that fortress, with the exception of one who was left alive to spread the message that Jeanne de Clisson was on the warpath. She then went to another garrison, one that had been under control of her late husband during the war, and did the exact same thing. But putting down soldiers loyal to the French king wasn't good enough for Jeanne. She wanted to take to the seas.
But I don't want to be a pirate!
She purchased 3 merchant ships to convert into warships. She painted the side of the ships black and dyed the sails red in one of the best color scheme flexes in pirate history, naming the flagship Ma Vengeance.
You're what the French call ma vengeance.
Or in English, My Revenge. That's fucking badass. It's suspected she was receiving assistance from the English crown during this time, but nobody knows for sure. And even if she wasn't officially endorsed by the English, there's no doubt they would have looked the other way if she was taking the initiative to destroy French properties and people. For the next 13 years, Jeanne de Clisson, who was now being called the Lioness of Brittany, raided French ports and ships over and over and over, bringing a level of violence no one would ever suspect from a woman of noble birth. She'd capture these French crews, execute all of them but one, then send some lucky son of a bitch away to let the French royalty know what she was up to and what her motives were.
Let the hate flow through you.
She also used her ships to assist English troops in their fight against France, giving them supplies, transporting them, all on her own dime. Wait. This woman was commanding an entire fleet of vessels, and we can't even get women in 2025 to back their car up without hitting the curb? Sexism joke. I'm so original. That's good, right? Misogyny, is that funny, Peter? Hilarious. Is that funny to you? Good. Okay, good. Content. That's content. At one point, the French finally got the upper hand on Jeanne and managed to sink My Revenge, leaving her and her 2 sons adrift for 5 days until they were rescued by English sailors. One of the sons died of exposure, while Olivier V was rescued with his mother. In the early 1950s, husband number 4 entered the picture when she married Englishman Sir Walter Bentley, who was a military commander close to the King of England. That relationship went sour when the King of England struck an alliance with the Duke of Brittany, which included Bentley surrendering Jeanne's remaining estates in Brittany to the Breton Duke. Bentley refused and was imprisoned in the Tower of London. Jeanne came very close to losing another husband to execution, but with both sides exhausted by the war and the Black Plague decimating Europe, Jeanne's husband was released and they were able to live the rest of their lives in peace at a castle in Brittany. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. We need to get a screenplay of Jeanne de Clisson's life called The Lioness of Brittany. We need to get some funding, and we need to get this movie made ASAP. Please like if you think Jeanne de Clisson is a bad bitch, share if you support her reign of terror against the French, and subscribe if you'd like to watch her kill every single Frenchman on a ship except Peter, who she will release to tell her story. No, but seriously, thank you for all of your support. We're coming up on 20 episodes here soon, and this entire thing keeps getting funner and funner because of the fun feedback all of you are giving. I read the comments. I love you.
Jeannie's husband has his head on a pike that made her anger spike. She's no longer a proper lady. That woman has gone full crazy. She'll slaughter some French just for kicks and sail the channel with her kids. Jeannie's heart hurts, it's full of misery. Watch her slaughter some French on Jack's history. Oh, 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 oh.
Dude, I work a fucking insurance job. I work in a cubicle every day and I need my F-250 so I can commute to my cubicle downtown.